Hopping on into it. So mistake number one, not starting with a prototype. I used to do this a bunch. I'd have a game idea. I'd start on it. I'd work on it. I'd get to the middle of the project. I'd get really tired and then just lose interest in it. The problem wasn't the game. The problem was the prototyping. And there's a couple parts to prototyping that's really, really important. Number one is when you're prototyping, just know that you can throw it away at any point and start over. Like that's what prototyping is. It's quick trash code, get it out there, get it working, get it running, see what's fun, see what's interesting about it. The other part is that you can make multiple prototypes. And this is something that I really did wrong because I would make a prototype and then just be like, yup, and then go make the game. Some of my stronger projects have definitely been from trying a few different things. So the idea would be like spending a couple hours or a day or two on a prototype. Sometimes it's longer depending on the length of the project. Like if you're going to do a multi-year commercial project, you might spend a couple days or a couple weeks because I've realized that finding the right project for you is incredibly important. Finding the project that's fun, finding the one that's you're interested in, that's a good cross-section of your skill set, all that stuff. Prototyping multiple different versions of what I'm making or multiple different things of what I want to make has been incredibly valuable. Number two, chasing trends. Everybody seems to be doing this these days, and there are people that are having success with it. Cool. But basically, I mean, like you see a bunch of games coming out, certain games of certain genres, or maybe there's a breakout game that like defines a genre like Vampire Survivors or something like that. And the first inclination of a lot of game dev folks is like, hey, let me make a game like that. But usually it's not done out of inspiration. Usually it's done out of like, cash grab. And generally that doesn't turn out good. A couple reasons. Number one, by the time you recognize the trends, it's usually too late. And it's not always the case. Like I think a lot of people caught on the Vampire Survivor train at a good amount of time because there was nothing else like it. And it was such a low scope game that it worked. But a lot of these trends, dude, remember, it takes a couple years to make a game. So if you're going to hop on a trend and you're going to be like, this is really hot right now. Strategy games are really hot right now. So I'm going to make a strategy game. I did that with Battleborn, and it's been a couple years since Battleborn started. When it launches, will strategy games still be hot? I don't know. But it was a mistake I made because hopping on trends, one, trends are fickle, but two, they may not be what you want to make. Like just make the games that are compatible with you and make the games that are compatible with your interests. That's what I did. That's what I'm doing. Number three, I'm building a game for everyone. There's a lot of people out there that are interested in a lot of different things. So making a game that appeals to all of them is not only impossible, it's also impractical, and it's going to make your game worse. Most of the time when people are looking at it, especially if this is a commercial project, because I did this myself, I've made a lot of games, dozens and dozens of games. And one of the things I realized when I get feedback from people, I want them to like my thing, right? And so I try to like add things in that people like, oh, this person likes farming games or this person likes whatever. So let me add some elements of that to make a game like that. It also happens with my own interests. So like I'm playing Balatro at the moment, play a bunch of that. You're like, oh, I can make a game like this, right? Like with Molt and Score and like just cards and like, Joker. The whole system is cool. It's a very elegant, beautiful game. Then you play a different game. I'm playing this game called Power Chord, which is a deck building game. I'm like, oh, that's really cool. I could add some elements of that. I should just make a universal Fortnite battle royale MMO ultimate game, and that way I can get all the gamers and then I can make all the money. But it doesn't work like that because games are entertainment. It's a very hit driven business, and the hits are driven by the interests of the pocket groups of genre lovers, of mechanic lovers, of style lovers, of people's interests, right? It seems counterintuitive, but one of the things that I've learned is that it's almost always better to do one thing really well than to try and do a bunch of things half-ass, because there is a trade-off there. You can't do everything really well, especially if you're a solo developer. Like you just can't. You have strengths, you have weaknesses, and if you make the best roguelike rhythm game on the planet, you're much more likely to get widespread appeal from hardcore fans that then talk about it so highly that the mainstream gets a hold of it, versus try to go mainstream and never appeal to those hardcore fans, if that makes sense. So yeah, that's just my opinion on it. Number four, realism over gameplay. If you take a game like Kingdom 2 Crowns, came out a couple years ago, that game is beautifully elegant. It's so simple and everything is streamlined to the point that it's such a simple game to play. You play the whole game with one button. It's not realistic because when farmers farm stuff, they poop out coins. The enemies come and grab coins. Archers kill a rabbit for food. The rabbit pops out coins. There's no actual food, but it's an abstraction of an archer would shoot a rabbit. It would sell it at the market. It would earn a coin from that. The coin would make its way to the king and so on and so forth. It's an abstract version of that whole concept. As a result, it's a very compelling game. It's a very interesting, compelling game, but it's not realistic at all. So focusing on the realism of the mechanics, I think can get you in trouble because, unless you're making a simulation game, like obviously go for it. If you're making racing sims, like you want that to be as realistic as possible, but just don't over focus on realism. Same thing with graphic fidelity, which is actually number 5, over focusing on graphic fidelity. When I started in game development, I was really, really obsessed with like great graphics. Like I really wanted the next gen graphics, the ultimate 3D models, the 10,000 million polys. I saw like Gears of War and I saw Halo Vidocs and all that. It just looks so good. One of the things that I've learned since though is it wasn't the graphic fidelity that made those games stand out. It was the style. And sure, I'm sure graphic fidelity played a role in those AAA titles that were console sellers and stuff like that. But especially in today's market, like with the different indie games that are coming out on Steam and stuff, the games that stand out aren't the highest graphic fidelity. They are the games with the most style. So I mentioned Kingdom 2 Crowns. If you look at that, it's beautiful pixel art. If you look at Islanders, Jonas Tyroller's game, it's just got style. It's got an aesthetic style. There's a lot of games out there that don't have really intense, high poly, epic visual graphics, but they have really good color palettes, really good style, really good artistic design. And that's the stuff that stands out these days, in my opinion. Number 6, under focus on audio. So I like to design my games without audio at all. Okay. I don't know why I'm like this, but I like to get the first like prototype and demo out with no audio at all. And one of the reasons I like to do that is because audio is so incredibly important. It's so incredibly compelling. If I add audio in, one of the things I'm likely to do is make the visuals less interesting because audio is so important. So if you take a gun in like Call of Duty, right? And you go, if it's got a really lame sound effect, that gun feels dumb. Like I don't want to use that gun, right? But if it's got like an epic, boomy, like really cool sound effect, the thing sounds so much more powerful, so much more fun to use. You see this across genres, like the sound effects are incredibly compelling to how things feel. And I think a lot of developers undervalue audio tremendously. Like my personal process is I go on freesound.org, I sort by CCO, which is public domain assets, download those and mix those together to make my sound stuff. A few other sources and stuff like that. I have a few sound kits and stuff. But generally, like if you can take a bass boom and combine it with like a gun sound effect, you'll get like a really cool effect. Same thing with like doors, especially like in a sci-fi game. If you want doors to open, you need like an air sound effect mixed with a bassy boom. Number 7 is no focus on UI UX. So UI stands for user interface. UX stands for user experience. User interface are the menu screens, the things they click on, the buttons, and so on and so forth. UX encompasses UI, but is separate from UI, which is like the general experience of clicking on the thing or working with the thing. Both of them are incredibly important. Designs should intentionally look at their UI and UX. A lot of developers, myself included, would put menu screens as like the last thing they want to think about, right? Or even like health bars and stuff like that. It's like, oh shit, I made a game where I need health. Let me throw a health bar on there. Like the health bar is the afterthought, not the forethought. By putting a more intentional focus on my UI UX, I've made much better games. You can design around how people view the screen, how people feel, and so on and so forth. The other thing is just keeping in mind the intensity of your game is really important. So I see this a lot, like people will have health bars, but it'll be a really intense bullet hell game and they're getting hit and all that. And the little tiny health bar in the bottom of the screen is just going boop, 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 boop. And all this crazy shit's happening in the screen, like boop, boop, boop. And the health bar is just going boop, 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 boop. Like that's not enough feedback to the player, right? So being more intentional about your UI and UX can really go a long way. Like for example, I'm like making a game live here. In addition to that little health bar, you can have the whole screen flash red, or you can have the character flash red, or both. You can have the character flash white, the screen flash red, and the health bar bump up. If you really pay attention, you watch videos of like Call of Duty or some of these other games, some of the longer kill time games for sure, you'll see all these effects. And playing them, you won't even notice. But you'll just be like, oh, I'm getting hit. You'll know that intuitively as a player. As a designer, if you actually watch the footage, you'll see the flashes, you'll see all the different feedbacks to the player. So UX for sure, and then UI as well. Be more intentional about it. That'd be my tip, because that's a mistake a lot of people make. So normally a sponsor would go show here, but since we don't have any sponsors on the channel yet, I thought I'd share something I'm just really passionate about. So solo game dev is kind of like Dark Souls. Fighting an impossible battle against huge monsters, it's insanely difficult and hard to do all by yourself. But think about it. What if game dev was more like, I don't know, Minecraft? Your friends are making something cool, and you just pop in, build a cool little garden or something, and then pop out. That's actually why we made DevPods. It's a community of game developers that builds and ships games together. The projects we work on range from 2 to 5 months long. We've shipped 11 games in the last 12 months this way, with everyone's name right there in the credits. And the best part is, just like Minecraft, you can hop in, see what games people are making, pick a task that needs doing, and then just contribute to that game right then and there. You can work on as many games as you want, you can grab as many tasks as you want, and you can do everything your way. And the game's guaranteed to ship in a few months because we've got project leads to keep things on track, and we got people around to help if you get stuck. So you can work on a bunch of games in progress, or if you got enough time and effort, you can actually pitch your own prototype and have other people work on it with you. If you got shiny object syndrome and you like to juggle multiple projects, maybe you have a full-time job or a family, maybe you just want to work on a few things to add to your portfolio for a game dev job. DevPods is for you. If you want to finally finish games, build cool stuff with teams, head over to devpods.gg and use code TIM for 50% off your first month. Anyway, back to the video. I'll see you then. 6, 7, 8. Number 8 is ignoring onboarding. So this goes along with UX, and this includes a tutorial. If you are pushing your game out without a tutorial, without any sort of onboarding, and by onboarding, I just mean the intro experience to the game. So if you're coming in, what do you experience in the first 5 seconds, 10 seconds, 20 seconds, 5 minutes, so on and so forth? Most people will never finish your game by far. Like 20, 30% of people will finish your game. 70% of the people playing your game are only going to experience the first 20%. So by front loading all of the love and care on that first 20, 30%, you make a much bigger impact. And I want you to think about this. I know you've played games. Think about how many games you didn't finish that you still look fondly on. Like, I never finished Cyberpunk. I love that game. Cyberpunk 2077. It was great. Most people do not finish games, and you need to design for that. Most developers make the mistake of thinking that people are going to play their game from start to finish. That's still important, but that onboarding, the first 20, 30%, learning how to play the game, learning what buttons to press, learning the world, learning the context, all this different stuff is incredibly important. Number 9, inconsistent design choices. Now, this has a range of applications, but one of the things that I learned hard way was by making a game where every single enemy in the world was made out of hearts. Every object, really. Like Philophobia, the Fear of Love, it's a game based on the 5 stages of grief, blah, 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 where love is literal hell. But everything in the game is made out of hearts. So one of the things I learned really early on was like, okay, if everything's made out of hearts, how do you tell what the enemies are? Like, the key is made out of hearts, the box is made out of hearts, the chains are made out of hearts. How do you know what's going to kill you? So I had to adapt a very specific design language around the enemies. And what I ended up doing was a lot of the enemies have very sharp, pointy-like features, and then they have the very specific shade of red. They all include a very specific shade of red if they'll hurt you. So as a player, what you start to do is you start to play the game and you're like, oh, I recognize that red. I don't use it anywhere else. The only place I use that specific shade of red is on enemies that will kill you. So that's a consistent design choice because it tells the player that's playing that, hey, this thing is dangerous. And you start to learn that as a player. If I were inconsistent about that, and I was at first, if I had some enemies that were black, some enemies that were this color, and so on and so forth, some of those might actually ship with the game. It's a little more jarring when you're not really sure if something is going to kill you. And there's a lot of stuff with your design you need to be consistent. So controls would be another thing that fits in there, right? So like if it's E to open this door, but it's T to open another door, it's really jarring to the player because it's like, I don't know what button that is. It should always be E for every action for the door, right? Sounds simple, but a lot of people get it wrong. Number 10 is not having clear vision. As a solo game dev that's made a lot of games, there's plenty of games I started without a vision. It's not bad as long as the scope is small. You're in a game jam, you're making something for the weekend, you're making something stupid with your friends, go for it. Start, iterate. That's usually what prototyping is though, right? So super small scope, trash code that you're making quickly to see if something is fun. Nothing wrong with that. Prototyping is great. But once you turn that prototype in a game, you got to recognize that you're going to be working on this thing 3 months, 6 months, a year, whatever. Even if you follow the small games trend and all that, you can aim at 3 months all you want, but it might be 6 or 9 months. So it's a longer project. You want to make sure that you have a sort of clear vision for what the thing is because it's so easy to play this game and get inspired by mechanics from that game. Play this game and get inspired by mechanics of that game. I've done that a bunch, and there's plenty of games that have turned into just messes because I've got inspired by a bunch of different things. So having a clear vision is really important for me, and I actually have, I actually use a one-page minimalist game design document that I'll link down below if you guys want, where it talks like how to actually like write down your vision and make sure you don't get stuck. The other thing, you want to know what your game is. Obviously, like for me, I need to see it from start to finish. Like I need to see like, okay, here's how you start, here's how you finish, and here's all the stuff in between. If I can't see the finish line, I'm like, this probably isn't going to be a good long-term project for me because I can't clearly see it and I need to evolve the idea more before I commit to it. Sometimes that's prototyping, right? So know what your game is, but also know what your game is not. I'm going to make a game like Balatro, but it's not poker and it's not whatever. If you're really inspired by Balatro and you're adding a lot of mechanics from that game into yours, it's a slippery slope because then you're like, oh, well, I added this system, but that system works really good with that other system that they use. And then that other system, you can kind of mix up your game and get lost, especially if you've been at this for a year or two. Like, dude, when you're in a project that long, you don't know what way is up and what way is down, right? So like having a clear vision of what you're doing is important. And having constraints. Constraints may seem like less fun, but they are the most important thing for longer term creative projects because without constraints, your thing can morph and that finish line can move 1,000 times and it's not fun. Number 11, not getting feedback. When I started, I was like, yo, this is the best idea on the planet. People are going to steal it from me. I can't get feedback because they're going to hurt my feelings. Like there's so many things going through my head, right? And I was just like, you know what? What if I just make a game and then release it to the world and then it makes $1 million and no one had ever seen it before? It's going to be awesome. So why don't I do that? Problem with that is the first time someone plays your game, they're going to find a thing you didn't know existed. They're going to find bugs. They're going to find problems. They're going to get confused with stuff. You really want to get feedback. The other thing is you want to get the right type of feedback. Ask the right questions is a huge one. One of my favorite feedback questions of all time is tell me one thing you love and one thing you hate. If they're your friend, they don't want to hurt your feelings, obviously. So be like, it's great, dude. Oh my God, it's great. Or they'll like be playing your game and then they'll like check their phone real quick and they're just not interested or whatever. Forcing them into like, what do you hate about this? What do you love about this? Those are two very strong words. By forcing them to go in every direction, you get a better answer. Because if you say, hey, can I have some feedback? It's great, dude. And that's like useless, right? So the other thing is problems they tell you are usually accurate, but the solutions are not. So for example, they might say like, oh, this character feels bad. I think you should make a new character. So that's the problem. Character feels bad. Solution, make a new character. Problem might be accurate. The character might feel bad to play, but the solution might be better animation, better sound, quicker response time, quicker speed. There's a lot of solutions to character feeling bad that might not encompass designing a whole new character. So keep that in mind with people's feedback, that listen to their problems, take in mind their solutions, but don't always listen to those, which leads me to number 12, improperly valuing feedback. And this goes both ways. A great example is just YouTube. Like I'll see 99 great comments and then I'll see one bad comment and that bad comment will like ruin my day. So I just can't read comments. I would love to, I just can't do it. So people do that with feedback too, is like they'll ignore all the good feedback and then just focus on the bad feedback. You're giving it improper weight, right? And the same thing otherwise is like if a bunch of people are saying, hey, this needs work, but one person says it's good, keeping in mind the source of that feedback is incredibly important because it's not just about volume. You can't just say 7 people say yes, 2 people say no, therefore we go with yes. Make sure that people that you're getting feedback from are interested in your game, in your genre, in all of that. A lot of people like to show their significant other, their games and stuff, which is cool. But like, if they're not gamers, if they don't play games, if they don't have all the understanding of 10, 20, 30 years playing games, like they're going to come into your game different than someone on Steam would usually, right? Because someone on Steam is like, hey, I play a bunch of games in this genre. Let me play this. They're going to have existing knowledge from previous genres that they're going to bring into it. So you want to make sure that you get people that are compatible with your game type. You also want to make sure that you value their feedback accordingly. There are plenty of times where somebody would say like, I really think that this would be great with a crafting system. Cool, but that's your preference. That's not actually what would make the game better. That's what would make the game better for you. So you have to keep that in mind when you're designing. But that's it for this video. Hit thumbs up, share it with all your friends and stuff. I'll see you in the next one.